They tried to push me out, but I was already part of the foundation. You know what I mean? 22 years, that's how long I've called this patch of ground home, and honestly, Cedar Ridge wasn't just a zip code or a neighborhood or a cluster of houses lined up like dominoes. It was the first real thing I ever built for myself. I can still see the way the dirt roads curled through nothing but overgrown brush. Still taste that cup of burnt coffee. I sipped the day we signed the first development papers, blueprint in one hand, stubborn streak in my chest. Back then, the land felt like pure possibility, wild and ragged and stubborn, as I was not a single manicured flower bed in sight. I wasn't some big-shot developer, just one of the quiet ones in the back room, scribbling out paperwork, sketching plat maps, and yeah, I was the guy who drafted the original deed restrictions. We wanted a place where you could plant roots, where kids could scrape their knees, and neighbors would know your dog's name, not some dystopian block where you had to measure your mailbox every June. Funny thing is, the ink on those old restrictions was still mine, every clause, every comma, every ideal about leaving room for actual living. And yet here I was, 2 decades and a lifetime later, standing on my own porch, holding a certified envelope stamped with that smug HOA seal, Cedar Ridge Homeowners Association, looking all official, cold, and bureaucratic. The letter inside God, the arrogance told me, I'd broken 6 neighborhood rules. Non-conforming paint, shrubs too close together, my favorite failure to maintain aesthetic harmony. I mean, I laughed out loud. I'd had the same green shutters and cedar siding for 20 years, same as the day it passed inspection. What did my porch swing offend them? Did my hydrangeas clash with Matt Ridley's sense of order? Yeah, Matt Ridley. That's when things really started to go sideways about a year back. When the tone of the newsletters got bossier, when old Gloria, the retired teacher who'd always run things with a soft touch, got replaced by Matt and his army of freshly minted compliance officers. Polo shirts, clipboards, drones, yeah, actual drones buzzing over our backyards like we were living in a spy movie. The neighborhood change got quieter, not in the good way. I spent my days in the garden, tinkering in the garage, trying to mind my business. My wife had passed 4 years ago, and in a weird way, the house felt like her memory. The porch she painted, the swing she made me hang, the flowers we planted the year our daughter went to college. I didn't need a new paint job. I needed to be left alone. But the letter spelled it out: fix the so-called violations in 15 business days, or get ready for fines, liens, maybe even legal action. The irony: property liens on land I helped protect. It was almost funny if it wasn't so pathetic, because the restrictions they were quoting at me, I'd written them, every line. I'm the kind of guy who keeps records not because I'm paranoid, just because truth deserves a paper trail. And something told me this wasn't really about shrubs, this was about power, about who gets to call the shots. You see enough of these HOA stories, you know how the game plays out. Warnings, fines, threats. Then the real war starts: hearings, legal fees, gossip campaigns. This wasn't about order, it was about removal. I started paying attention. Watched Matt and his crew buzzing around the neighborhood like they owned the place, measuring mailbox heights, peering at roofs with apps. Matt, early 30s, buzz cut, a smile that never quite reached his eyes, ran for the board 6 months after moving in, and won mostly with votes from the new crowd. Their slogan: restore, order, reclaim pride. Like we'd lost something. Their first act: rewrite the rules. Aesthetic standards. Compliance committees, a so-called beautification squad. Sounded harmless till you realized they were issuing photo citations and peering over fences with digital tape measures. They handed out warnings like Halloween candy. One neighbor, Carl, got fined $75 because his trash can was out too long after pickup. Amy, who'd put up solar panels, was told she had 30 days to tear them down or face daily fines, never mind the state energy code gave her every right. That's when I realized this wasn't neighborly squabbling, this was a takeover. The point wasn't order, it was control. I started keeping notes, not because I was itching for a fight, but because I knew how these things escalate. You start with rules, then it's budgets, then lawyers, then fiduciary duty, and endless paperwork. And all the while, Matt's out there shaking hands like a politician, glaring at my old garage and green shutters like I'm the lone weed in his perfect lawn. The hammer dropped the week my daughter called to say she was coming up with the grandkids. Instead of planning for family, I was staring at a cardstock mandatory compliance review, summons code for trial. No details, just persistent nonconformity. I had a good laugh at that. What they didn't know, what Matt didn't know, is that when Cedar Ridge was incorporated, I personally drafted a clause to protect original residents. All deed-holding owners who built before the HOA's formation in 2001 shall be grandfathered and exempt from future design or aesthetic mandates. That clause had never mattered till now. They had no idea. I dug out the originals, yellowed, signed, county stamped. Copied, highlighted, prepared a legal memo, the kind I used to draft in my city hearings days. I mowed, I trimmed, made my place shine. If we were fighting over aesthetic harmony, I'd give them a front yard fit for a magazine cover. Thursday came, humid and sticky, and I walked into that meeting room early, manila folder in hand. Board up front, Matt, of course, front and center with Karen and Brian, the kind who'd fine you for wind chimes. I waited nearly an hour as they droned through budgets and landscaping contracts. Then finally, next item 217, Willow Creek Lane compliance hearing. I stood slow and steady, and when Matt told me to sit, I just said, I prefer to stand. He ran through the list, 6 violations, each more absurd than the last: wrong fence color, non-native plants, woodworking gear, visible from the street, even unauthorized rocking chairs. I almost laughed again. Then I opened my folder, handed out the originals. Are you aware your guidelines contradict the foundational documents of Cedar Ridge? Matt blinked. Recovered. We operate under revised bylaws. Sure you do, I said. But the county filing includes a clause, section 4.3b, that exempts me and every other original resident. The room got real quiet. Some folks started to lean in. Brian, the treasurer, protested bylaws must be enforced uniformly. I turned to the room. There's nothing uniform about bullying people out of their homes. Nothing legal about inventing infractions. Nothing ethical about using rules to force folks out. I played an audio recording from a neighbor Matt's own volunteer caught saying, "We're trying to phase out the older homes, they're ruining the image." That played loud. Gasp whispers, a couple folks stood up. Matt tried to shut me down. This is a hearing, you can't hijack it. I just looked at him. You already hijacked this neighborhood? I'm just bringing it home. The board called for a recess. I left that room not as a defendant, but as the guy who'd reminded them what Cedar Ridge was supposed to be. But the battle wasn't over. Suddenly, neighbors who used to avoid me at the mailbox started calling. Alan, 2 streets down, warned me about the Refresh Project, a secret plan to push out legacy homes, rebrand the neighborhood as high-end sell to developers. I started pulling every document I could, old newsletters, public minutes, even found a PowerPoint left online. Vision 2030, which called for gradual transitions through sustained compliance pressure. That's what they called it when they fined Barbara 5 times for her birdhouses, when they threatened to lean my place over shrubs. They were breaking spirits, not enforcing rules. When the next inspection notice arrived, 2 board members and an external consultant scheduled to walk my property, I called Beth at the county records office. By sunset, she'd emailed me the scanned originals, and there it was in black and white. No regulation enacted by future governance may supersede foundational rights of original residents. My name at the bottom. They had no idea. When they showed up on my porch, I stood my ground. You're on my property. State your business. Matt smirked, tried to bluff. I handed the consultant the certified originals. Read these carefully. You're flirting with legal liability. For the first time, Matt looked unsure. We'll review this with our counsel. You do that, I said, and freeze all compliance actions until you do, because next time it won't just be a folder. And then, I walked back inside, heart pounding but steady. That night, no emails, no violations, no threats. Not yet. I wasn't naive. Bullies regroup. But now I was ahead, and I realized it wasn't just about me anymore. It was Alan, Barbara. Sarah, the young couple cited for garage paint that matched the model home the widow fined for her mailbox. We were all targets. So I wrote to the community newsletter, published the original deed clause, invited everyone to ask for their own copy. Neighbors knocked on my door not to complain, but to thank me. Even newer folks started asking questions. The next town hall was standing room only. When I spoke, I didn't need a mic. I just held up the deed, walked them through the language, showed the certified stamps, and told them if the board kept operating outside the law, we'd take them to court, all of us. The days after Cedar Ridge felt alive again. People talked, not whispered, challenged fines, organized petitions, even brought in a local journalist. When the board tried to push through a vote to nullify the deed protections, I handed out 40 copies of The True History of Cedar Ridge. Residents stood up one after another, told their stories. The vote failed overwhelmingly. The board's power cracked. When the independent review committee was formed, I was on it along with Barbara Sarah and others. We dug deep, found damning evidence, fines issued before hearings, money funneled to board member relatives, secret plans to sell out to developers. At the next meeting, we presented it all. Carla, our attorney, led the charge. Sarah read testimonies. I held up the original deed and reminded everyone this is a promise, not just a piece of paper. The vote of no confidence passed by a landslide. The board was gone. Neighbors started waving again. Flowers got planted not because they had to, but because people wanted to. I got a plaque for reminding us home means standing your ground. I didn't hang it up right away. Just let it rest in my lap as the breeze moved through the porch, and I realized the war wasn't about rules, it was about belonging. Now, Cedar Ridge isn't perfect, but it's real. Neighbors talk, listen, argue, laugh, and when a boy stopped by for a school project on Community Heroes, his mom told him to talk to me. I realized we'd saved more than houses. We'd saved the promise we made to each other. So yeah, they tried to push me out, but I was already home roots too deep to pull up. The question is, who really gets to define a community? Those who build it, or those who'd sell it off? Tell me what you think. Have you ever seen a neighborhood lose its soul or fight to get it back? Drop your thoughts below, because I guarantee someone's listening.